nice empty space right at the front. So really, really warm welcome again. So as I said, my name's Gaurav Vati. And also welcome if you're joining us online. So we've got a YouTube audience as well joining us. So really warm welcome to you at home. So it's the warm-up of the Meditation Challenge. And so next week we sort of start officially. And in case you don't know, you might have heard of it, but you might not have done. So in the challenge, the challenge is to meditate every day for 4 weeks and to come to the centre once a week. So you can come in person as you are. Now you can come virtually on YouTube. And we're going to be doing online morning meditation. So we're going to be doing Zoom morning meditations each day, Monday to Friday, starting next week from 7:30 to 8:30. And they're going to last for 4 weeks as well. And what else to say about those? Oh yeah, if you're at home watching on YouTube, there's beginners meditation. So if you don't know the meditation practices, then you can learn those meditation practices. And there's also a regulars meditation. So if everyone in this room knows the practices, so we'll be talking about particular ways that you can work in meditation to, in a way to deepen your meditation practice, but also to deepen your life. So that's what we're going to be looking at each evening over the course of the next 5 weeks. We're going to be looking at, in a way, how meditation can change your life and how you can start to live from the deepest part of yourself. So quite a few of you who are in the room will have been on retreat over Christmas, and you will have had a sense of that. And lots of you in this room actually will have already had a sense of how the Dharma, how Buddhist principles, Buddhist practices, spiritual friendship can put us in touch with what's most valuable in our lives, put us in touch with the deepest parts of ourselves. And that's what we're trying to do here at the Buddhist Centre. We're trying to live from the deepest part of ourselves, and we're trying to create a community of people that are doing that, so that when we see each other, when we practice together, when we come together, we're drawing that out of each other. So we're trying to create that sense of community here, and hopefully you'll have a felt sense of that. Hopefully that's why you've come to the Buddhist Centre and you've come back, because there's a sense of something that's happening here. We're trying to create that between us, and you're as much a part of that as myself and Amalayodhin and Katrina, who are on the team here, by coming here and partaking of that, participating in that. So that's what we're trying to communicate, and that's what we're trying to create together. And you know what it's like our life, the human life is really life that wants to grow. The sort of deepest part of ourselves wants to flourish. We want to grow, we want to live well, we want to flourish. And when something obstructs that, whether it's an internal, something internal, or whether it's something external, it's very, very painful when we can't sort of reach our full potential. So that's what we're trying to uncover here at the Buddhist Centre, and that's what we're going to be looking at over the next 5 weeks, is looking at how can we sort of, in a way, like activate our potential, and how can we live from that, the deepest part of ourselves, and how can we really live in a way where our life flourishes and where the life around us flourishes. So we're going to be exploring that in different ways, and we use meditation as a sort of container for that, to work on our minds, but the idea is that we're practicing all the time outside of the meditation practice as well. Yeah, so do come to the challenge, do engage with the Meditation Challenge. You're here this week. Try to come each week. It's just for the rest of the month, basically, until the beginning of February. So see if you can commit to coming to the Wednesday class each week. And we're encouraging you to come early, so that we're going to have the room open from 7. So you can come early and you can just lay down in the room and just relax. That's a really, really good way actually to prepare for meditation. Lots of people often, when they're sitting to meditate, will feel really, really sleepy, or they'll be in a particular mode because you've come from a busy day of responding and doing lots of things. So when you sit to meditate, your mind's just doing this. So it's really nice to have a transition where you can just put down your day, really, really relax, and let your mind completely rest, not needing to do anything with your mind. So we'd really encourage you to come early, come at 7, and you can just lay down in the shrine room. And then we start at 7, just after 7:15, so you can have like a 15-minute power nap, courtesy of the Buddhist Centre, which is like an amazing thing, isn't it, in London, to do that? You don't have to pay for that, you just get that free. And there's even cushions as well, so yeah, we make it really comfortable. So do that, and see if you can come and commit to just coming for the next 4 weeks. And what that does is it will serve you really well, but also it will serve everyone else as well. Like I said, we're trying to create that sense of community between us. And you know what it's like when you come and you recognise people and you see people that you know. It's lovely, isn't it, to see a familiar face. So you can become the familiar faces for each other, and you can make connections here and make friends. And I was speaking to someone before the class who was on a retreat and just saying, oh, it's just really nice because they made friends and then they came back and those people were here. And I meet a lot of different people who are coming to the Buddhist Center for the first time, and often what they say is that the type of conversations and the type of connections that they have outside of the Buddhist Center, they can't talk about the things they really want to talk about. They want to talk about, why are we here? What's the point of life? What are we doing? And they want to talk about things which are deeper than just like the mortgage and the children or emails or, I don't know, the next exercise routine. They want to talk about something much more substantial, and they find that with their connections here. So that's also something that you can start to partake in, and you can, take risks in communication, make some friends here at the Buddhist Center. Lots of you will already have done that, but in a way that's the purpose of our tea breaks. We have these long tea breaks, and when I first came I was like, oh, why is this a long tea break? Let's just meditate. But actually now I realise the value of that is so that we can talk to each other, we can connect, and that's just as important as when we're sitting and meditating, is making those connections. So come each week, come early, and just see if you can engage with the practices, and see if you can tune in online so you can come to the morning meditations. You don't even have to get dressed. You can do those morning meditations in your pajamas. So it's kind of super easy to do that. So and you really do get a feeling like you're on retreat, actually meditating every morning for a week with this. You see the same faces each morning. You get that sense of of coming together, collectively practicing. And the beauty of that is that you can relax into that. So we need to make a particular type of effort, but when lots of us come together, we can become bigger than the sum of our parts, and there's a momentum that we can generate. So in a way, we can relax even more into the collective practice. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to say about the challenge. So what we'll do just now is I'm going to say a little bit about working in meditation. No, actually, I'm going to lead you through a body scan, then I'll say a bit about meditation, then we'll meditate, and then we'll have a tea break. Okay. So set yourselves up in your meditation postures, and if you're at home, just make sure you're comfortable and that you're sitting upright if you're at home. Good. Okay, so just let the weight of the body just release down. Have a sense of your sit bones on the cushion or the chair. And just feel into your legs, particularly your thighs, and just notice if you're gripping through the muscles of the thighs. And as you breathe out, just see if you can let your legs be a bit heavier. Trying to feel a sense of letting go down through the legs. And then just bringing the attention to your lower back, And see if you can just let the lower back be quite soft and open. Sometimes we can be sort of holding the body upright in quite a stiff way. So see if you can just let the spine just rise up in its natural curves. The lower back soft and open. And notice if you're clenching through the shoulders. Just have a sense as you breathe in, your chest is soft and open. And as you breathe out, the shoulders relax down the back. And if you encounter tension in the body or sort of pain in your body, see if you can just take the breath to that point. So you're just touching any tension with your breath. And just noticing the texture, the quality of the sensation. And just let the back of your neck be long and the sides of your neck soft. And allow the whole of the face to soften, so just letting go of holding any expression on your face. Let the mouth and tongue relax. Soften your eyes. And let the jaw release. And just start to feel the breath through the belly and the chest. So you want the body to be relaxed, open. So as you breathe in, just seeing if you can let the belly and the chest just open with the breath. we're trying to encourage the mind and the heart in the same direction, so the mind's relaxed, open. Seeing if you can really feel the breath, engage with the breath. Just a few more moments here. And then just starting to let go of the practice and just sit for a few moments, not trying to do anything at all. So I'm just going to say just a few things about meditation, then we're going to meditate again. So if you want, you can sit out of your meditation posture. So yeah, in a moment we're going to do a condensed form of the mindfulness of breathing. And in the second half, Amalayodhin is going to talk a bit more about our attitude to meditation, our attitude to our lives. But I just wanted to just draw out how we work sort of on a more physical level in the meditation practice. So quite often a meditation can be like an experience of contracting around something, and then a moment of awareness and a feeling of release, and then a contraction quite soon after, or maybe after quite a while. So you can have this, that's one way of sort of experiencing or thinking about meditation, and it can happen sort of physically, or it can happen emotionally or psychologically. So an example could be, like say in the body scan, I'm scanning through my body and I'm not really that in touch with my body, and as someone leads me through, I get a bit more in touch, and then I don't know, like there's an instruction to notice my shoulder or something, and then I'm like, my shoulder, my shoulder's really tight, and there's this pain here, and I'm starting to contract sort of in my mind and almost physically around this sort of idea of my shoulder and all these stories. And as with awareness, what you can notice is that is then just like this, it's like a sort of gathering around something, and actually it's a bit sort of removed from the actual physical experience. So, and that can happen with thoughts as well, or an emotion can arise and we sort of contract, and then in a way sort of like bounce off into something which is away from our immediate experience. which is why the breath is so good to focus on, because the breath is so direct and immediate. So what I wanted us to just look at when we're just doing this next meditation is just to notice, when you're distracted, just notice, try to notice what you're contracting around, basically. So what will happen is you'll be focusing on the breath, or maybe actually what will happen is you'll be focusing on the breath and you'll just stay focused on the breath for the whole 20 minutes. But usually what happens is you'll be focusing on the breath for 30 seconds, and then, you know what it's like, something pops into your mind, something will arise in your experience which you sort of hook onto, and then you sort of contract around, and then you're off away from the direct experience. So then what happens in meditation is then you note, usually it's like a coming to, it's like, oh, hang on, I'm thinking about that email from work, but I'm supposed to be meditating. And often what can happen is then you're just like, oh, quick, 1, 2, breathe in, breathe out, 1, breathe in, breathe out, 2. So you try to notice that, and then notice, okay, what are you contracting around? Feel it. It's not like it doesn't need to be analytical. You can just feel the contraction. Sometimes for me, what I notice is it's like my whole being is just like this. I'm like being propelled forwards, like a forward momentum of do, stuff. And I feel it as this physical momentum that's almost coming out the top of my forehead. You'll have your own thing. Others, you might feel more of a slump or something like that. So just notice what the sort of visceral feeling of the distraction. Notice the sort of, it will be a kind of form of contraction, even if you're going forwards, like a holding on. And notice it. And in a way, I would say let it go, but hopefully with the awareness, actually, something will start to loosen. So you can notice bringing a quality of awareness to something will bring in something different. So see if you can hold it with awareness, and then include the breath back in. So you're not bouncing out of meditation and bouncing in. You're noticing and including the breath, and see if you can just notice what happens in your experience. And this is a really good method for sitting still in meditation as well. So when you've got a physical pain, the same thing happens. So usually we move because there's a physical pain in the knee, say, and it's we contract all around that, and then we contract around the story of my knee, I've got to move, and then you move, and then it's oh, now my shoulder's not quite right, and you can just end up. And when you're leading the meditation, it's you can see this ripple of movement going across the room. So you're seeing it with physical sensation as well. Try to do that, notice and actually sometimes physical pain can even become pleasurable when you bring awareness to it, if you're really feeling the texture of the sensation, the quality of the sensation. So you're trying to get curious about the direct experience, and trying not to just follow the flow of your impulses to sort of grasp onto something. And sometimes it's too late, isn't it? We've already grasped onto something, we're already down a rabbit hole of thinking what we're doing tomorrow, what happened today. And then again, that's an opportunity again to notice the grasping and to sort of relax back into your experience, connect back to the breath. So that's the instruction for the meditation. We'll meditate for about 20 minutes, and we'll just do 2 stages of the mindfulness of breathing. So we'll do the first stage and the third stage, yeah? So the first stage is when you drop the number at the end of the breath, and the third stage is where you let go of the counting, yeah? So set yourselves up again in meditation posture. And it's important in a way not to try to instruct yourself not to cling, because it's sort of the nature of the unenlightened mind is it will grasp. So you're just noticing the nature of that, and in that way it liberates itself. So you don't just try to sort of, in a way, don't try to sort of tell yourself not to sort of grasp in a way, but just notice the habit of it and then let it go. So again, just settling down into the posture. And just to start, just notice perhaps where you're holding on unnecessarily in the body. Sometimes we can just habitually grip through the hands or the shoulders. You might be holding tension around your eyes. So just starting off by just allowing things to soften. So as you breathe out, just let the shoulders drop a little more down the back. Let your hands be soft and open. When the body's relaxed and when the mind is relaxed, the natural beauty of the breath will reveal itself to us. So it doesn't become this sort of cold object of meditation. It's a beautiful, poetic even experience of the body being breathed, the connection of external and internal worlds. So let the body relax a little more. Soften the chest. See if the belly could soften as well. Just starting to turn your attention to your breath. And when you notice that you're distracted, just notice how you're clinging and grasping, contracting around the experience, and just broaden out to the body and the breath. Mindfulness of breathing. And the first stage. stage of the practice. And now just start to let go of your effort to meditate. And just for the next few minutes, just sit. So yeah, what I sort of wanted to say actually before we meditated, but I forgot, but I can say it now and maybe it can still have its effect, is that I was saying that when a human life is a growing life, and when that growth is obstructed, it's painful. When we look at our mind, I don't know if you, maybe for a moment, or if you you might have noticed in the meditation where you were sort of clinging onto something or gripping onto something, contracting. We notice that we sort of painfully bind ourselves to ourselves. We sort of have this sense of ourselves, or a sense of something arising, and we get sort of locked into it. We get wrapped around it. We painfully bind ourselves to ourselves, and that limits us actually. So in meditation, we can start to notice that. You might have had a sense of noticing that sort of painful, sort of limiting. It's completely unnecessary, but it's habitual. And you might have also had a sense of being able to let go of that, or there is something beyond that which can sort of come into our experience, something sort of deeply part of us and beyond us as well. So when we can notice that habit of contracting and we can let it go, something else can come in, which is deeper. So that's what we're going to be exploring over the course of the next 5 weeks, and Amalayodhin's going to go more into that in the second half. But for now, we're going to have a cup of tea. So when you're ready, we're going to have tea actually in the small shrine room, so it's a bit of a different setup to normal. So we're going to have like a little loop through the small shrine room and the reception, so you can head there. And if you're at home, you can do your own process for making a cup of tea, and we'll be back here in about half an hour. I did press the button, but I don't know if it worked. It's not.
Okay, great. So I think that's everybody. So welcome back. So yeah, I'm just going to say a little bit more now on this whole theme of attitude and the attitude that we take to meditation. Garvavati talked a little bit about it just at the start. Could you just check if there's anybody else just to come in? That'd be great. Thank you. Just give people a minute just in case. Assume there's pretty much us then. Good. Okay, so what I'll talk about a little bit more is attitude in meditation. So what we're doing in meditation, thanks Liam. Great. So what we're doing in meditation is we're working directly on our mind. Meditation is the most direct way. There's lots of indirect ways to work on our mind, but meditation is the direct way to work on our mind. And I think really in Buddhism, what the Buddha is saying is that when you work on your mind, really what you do is you work on your whole life. It's not like, sometimes that we think of mind, we think of the sort of thoughts that flicker across our mind, quite regularly during the day. But really what the Buddha is saying is that actually mind, really is talking about mind in that kind of whole broader sense. It's really kind of psyche or something like that, you could say, which includes our emotions, our moods, our opinions, our attitudes, our views on life, all of those sorts of things, our tendencies, our habits, all of those the Buddha would include under this idea of mind. And meditation is the direct way of working on all of those. And when you work on your mind, you really work on your life. It's not just that you work on the sort of flickering thoughts that go across your mind. It's actually that you work on your whole life. For the Buddha, your mind is really the most important thing, is kind of the central thing in your life. The thing that makes most difference to your experience on a day-to-day basis is your mind. That's what the Buddha would say. It's that your mind is the central thing in terms of how your life feels on a sort of day-to-day. Your experience of yourself on a day-to-day. So that's not your career, or not your girlfriend or boyfriend, or not your car, or not your where you live, or not your friends, or not your circumstances, important as all of those things might be. The most important thing, the thing that sort of frames all that, is your mind. If you have a sort of radiant positive mind, you will notice the beauty in the sort of the positivity in the world, and that will be drawn more towards you. If you have a negative mind, if you have an ugly mind, you will notice that more in the world, and also you'll draw that more towards you. So for the Buddha, actually, what happens to you in your life, even though it's important, and of course it does affect your mind as well, is really not so important as your mind itself. Your mind itself is the central thing in terms of determining what your experience is like. And your mind itself does sit somewhat separate from what happens to you. Yes, it does condition your mind, what happens to you, and all the other things that we look to change in our life. But really, our mind is something that we can work on quite directly in itself. And so our life is something that we can work on quite directly in itself. And we do that in meditation. So meditation is really where we work most directly on our mind, and therefore most directly on our life. And it's slightly different from other activities in that kind of way. So usually, when we take up something, a lot of people took up meditation during lockdown. Lots of people took up baking. Lots of people took up, knitting, all that sort of thing. All those things are good as well. Lots of people took up meditation, and meditation is slightly different from sort of baking or knitting or tennis or weightlifting or whatever it might be that we might take up, cards, whatever it might be. Because usually when we take up something like that, we sort of add it on to ourselves as we already are. So, we take something like ourselves as we already are, and we go and we learn tennis, and we sort of add tennis onto that skill, onto that sort of range of what we are. But fundamentally, we sort of stay who we are with this added sort of thing called tennis now on top of it. Meditation is slightly different because it's not something that sort of you layer on top of you as a skill or sort of add to yourself as a skill, leaving the rest of yourself unchanged. That's not what meditation does. Meditation actually completely changes if it's, you engage with it and practice it and commit to it, completely changes the person that you are as well. It completely changes your mind. So you've got this slightly sort of, it's a way of working on your mind with your mind, which is, it's a slightly unusual thing, isn't it? Because here you've got this thing, your mind, and you want to change it, but you work on it with your mind, which is you can see where the difficulty comes from, can't you? It's kind of like, how do you work on this thing called your mind with your mind? So you're looking to change these aspects of your mind, this whole sort of psyche that we have, that you bring all the way with you from childhood, with all the habits of that, with all the conditions of all that, with the tendencies, with the tactics that we have. We take that, we look to work on it with that very same mind, with all those habits, tendencies, tactics, views, attitudes, emotions, habits, reactions, all of those sorts of things. So it's quite different from any other skill because it works on the thing with the thing itself. Now what that basically means is that you bring your whole life into you with meditation, because meditation is basically looking at your mind, and your mind is a reflection of your whole life, like I was saying, attitudes, views, all of those sorts of things. You bring yourself into the meditation with you. It's not like you leave yourself behind in meditation. So it's not like, say, for example, that you come to the London Buddhist Centre, you sit in sort of cross-legged pose, you give it some of these, and all of a sudden you've got a magic mind. You've got this sort of magic experience of mind. You don't meditate with a separate bit of mind. You meditate with the mind that you walk around each day, with all its sort of problems and all its its strengths, its weaknesses, all its kind of quirky kind of individual aspects of your mind, because our minds are sort of individual and quirky. Mine's certainly quirky anyway. So you bring your life into that, and of course it's very, very strong. It's got sort of decades of kind of momentum behind that as well. It doesn't sort of, it's not unknotted just kind of like straight away or very, very easily. It kind of, it hangs around, it stays in the meditation with you. So particularly what you bring into the meditation with you is your attitudes on life, your attitude to life. Your attitude to life will probably be, in fact it will be, your attitude to meditation as well. So the tactics and the views that you have of life and the views that you have of yourself you'll bring into meditation with you, and they'll affect the way that you work in meditation as well. So it's not like you bring a sort of neutral you or an abstracted you to work on yourself in meditation. You bring the you that also does all the other things during the day in a very particular way, in a way that's particular to you. Because of course you don't have sort of mind in an abstracted sense. You have your mind, and you have my mind, and you have individuals' minds that work in very, very specific ways to themselves. You might have noticed this, you've possibly noticed this, I noticed it, I was meditating by my 20s, but I think probably a lot of people start to notice by, you get on a bit in life and you go, oh, I'm a sort of unique, specific kind of thing. You know, I'm a unique sort of craziness. I'm a unique sort of weird quirkiness, weirdness kind of, I'm a unique sort of positiveness. You know, I have things specifically to my mind that are unique to me, and we start to notice that, don't we? When we bring those into meditation with us as well, when we work on our mind. So our attitudes are particularly the way that we sort of navigate life, and for some of us that would be, you know, very competitive, for example. So we might have a competitive attitude to life, and we'll bring that into meditation with us. So our attitude, if we were competitive, might be something like, I can really do this. All I need to do is sort of sit down, and like everything else that I do, if I just put my mind to it, I'll be really, really good at meditation. I'll be better at everybody else. I'm going to meditate more than everybody else. I'm going to do it loads and loads and loads. And then, you know, I'll really flourish at meditation. You might bring that attitude with you into the meditation. You might be a self-doubting type. You might sort of think, oh, I'm no good at meditation, or, you know, you might have that general attitude to life as well. I'm no good at this. I couldn't possibly do it. You know, you might deprecate and talk down to yourself in that sort of way. How could I possibly meditate? Look at everybody here. They're getting on it. They're doing it so well. They're getting on so well. While I can't do it at all. You could bring that attitude to meditation. Another attitude to meditation you could bring is one of sort of self-fantasy. And this is quite common as well. Often when people meditate, they think, you sometimes hear from classes, particularly when you talk about the metta bhavana. Metta bhavana is the meditation on developing loving kindness. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't experience any anger, or I don't experience any hate. You definitely experience anger, and you definitely experience hate. The Buddha said that that's absolutely intrinsic to all unenlightened experience. We all do. It's a very natural sort of normal human thing to do. We sometimes don't notice it until we've sort of meditated for a bit. So usually the answer I give if somebody says that is say, well, just meditate for a bit and see how that goes. Usually what will happen is people will start to notice it a few months in, once they've been meditating. Oh no, so wait, I've actually got lots of craving there. I've got lots of anger there. I've got lots of hatred in there. But sometimes we can have an attitude, we can go through life where we sort of manage to hold that off at arm's length. We think we're fantastic people. I recycle. I read The Guardian. I vote Green. I'm really a lovely person. And we sort of hold off actually what is the sort of darker kind of grittier sort of shadowy aspects of ourselves on that basis. So we might come to meditation with that attitude as well. And of course that's going to sort of affect the way that you meditate, won't you? It was sort of when distractions come up, the competitive person will sort of like, oh God, what are your distractions? Oh, just bat them out of the way and sort of really kind of like squeeze and like, no distractions, you know. The self-doubt person, when a distraction comes up, they'll go, oh look, there it is. I knew it. I can't do it. Here I am. I thought I could meditate. I can't meditate. Here I am distracted. Everybody else is blissed out. Here I am distracted. The person that goes into meditation with a bit of a self-fantasy might not even notice the distraction at all, or even the nature of the distraction. That sort of cravey kind of little voice that kind of talks, or that little angry voice that can talk to you in meditation. They might just decide just to ignore it, that it doesn't exist. So you can see that the attitudes that you bring into life will also be the attitudes that you bring into meditation. You'll come to meditation with those self-same tactics of going about life, and they all have their own downsides, and they're sort of ways that they sort of fall down. Particularly with me, I probably come from the more sort of competitive aspect of things. That's generally how I was brought up. I was brought up quite competitive. And so, my attitude to meditation can often be just sort of suffer and bear it for an hour and a half. Like just sit down an hour and a half. knees are screaming at you and kind of like you're in absolute agony. You're doing nothing. I mean, like, you know, you're not meditating. I'm not meditating in that sort of state. But, you know, the competitive attitude would say, well, what I need to do is just sit down here and suffer for an hour and a half. And then somehow that will kind of right itself. I'll start to learn how to meditate. It's a very kind of like narrow, it can be a very narrow driven sort of way of going about things. And of course that will affect the level of effort that I make as well. You know, I'll make too much effort in meditation. I'll get grabby at certain sort of outcomes. So I'll want to sort of like, okay, I'm really going to get into sort of really concentrated states now. That's what's going to happen. And that will affect the sort of effort that I make as well, probably too much effort. I'll kind of look to sort of grab at certain outcomes in meditation. And then, of course, when you look to grab at anything, it slips from you, doesn't it? So that doesn't work. A self-doubt person will probably make not enough effort because you know, they'll already have this kind of story in their mind that they can't do it. And of course, when you don't really try and when you don't make enough effort, of course, you can't do it. So your story becomes your reality. Your narrative becomes your experience, which is very common, isn't it? The stories that we tell ourselves, the narratives that we tell ourselves actually come through. They become our experience. Excuse me. So the first task really then is to notice what our attitudes are that we bring to meditation. What is it that we're bringing to meditation? That will really be the most important thing what we first start to do. It's like we look at our assumptions, the way that we work in meditation, and then seeing, well, what sort of type of meditator in that sort of way am I? Because it will be unique to you. You know, it'll have commonalities with other people, but you will have a very specific way of sort of your very kind of specific tactic for meditation, which will be your sort of strategy for life. It'll be your attitude for life. And that will affect the way that you work. So really one of the things that you want to do is you want to sort of, you want to see the sort of lens that you look through the world at. You want to start to notice the lens that you look through the world at more and more. You'll notice this is different for different people. Like it's very specific. I remember talking to my brother. I've got two younger brothers. Pete did a meditation course in Dublin. And when he was learning the Metta Bhavana, it was a 6-week course. And when he was learning the Metta Bhavana, this meditation on loving kindness, which I think you all know, there's a difficult person stage in that, where you send metta to somebody that you're not getting on with. And I was asking my brother, you know, how he was getting on with the course, with the meditation course. And he said to me, "Oh yeah, it's going okay. It's going not too bad. I mean, he didn't keep it up, so it couldn't have been going that well. But he said it's not going too bad. It's going okay." He said, "But God, there was something really weird. We were doing the Metta Bhavana there yesterday, and a load of people said that they find it really difficult to send well-wishing to somebody." And I sort of listened on the phone. I said, "Yeah," and he's like, "Isn't that weird?" I was like, "No, you know, I find it difficult sometimes to send well-wishing to somebody." But for him, it was a real surprise. He thought that, you know, he's a very good-natured, very sort of positive person. And he just sort of thought that everybody went around in that same sort of positive, good-natured manner, and that why wouldn't you send well-wishing, positivity, friendliness to somebody that you're not exactly getting on with? You know, he thought that was sort of standard. But it was unique to him, or reasonably unique to him. There'll be others like that, of course, but reasonably unique to him. With meditation, we actually have to look inward to our own particular way of kind of how we navigate the world and what the attitudes of that are. And it's very hard because it's the way that we it's the way that we see the world. It's very hard to see around it. You could imagine almost like the attitudes and the views that you have of your experience in the world are a bit like the sort of the glasses that you put on every day. So you could imagine you could put on, you get up in the morning, and every single morning you put on your competitive glasses. Now you don't know you're wearing them. It's the lens, the sort of colouring that you put on the world. It's the lens through which you look at your experience around you, the world around you. It's how you sort of edit it. You kind of edit it in a particular way, depending on the attitudes that you have about the world, the views that you have about the world. And then, of course, the world confirms those views for you, because you look out for things that confirm it. You see things that confirm it, and you disregard things that don't confirm it. Those are the particular glasses that we put on. So one of the attitudes, and sort of we don't know that we're doing it. It's very, very hard. I can't look around my glasses now at you, for example. I can take them off. I can't see anything. I can take them off. But metaphorically, to do that in meditation is very hard. Yeah, that, I suppose when you take off the lens, you start to see reality as it really is, or truth with the capital T. So it's sometimes said that the Buddha has gone beyond all views, for example, that he sees reality as it really is. He stopped editing it. He stopped sort of looking at it and sort of rearranging it to conform to and confirm his particular opinions of the world around him. So that's the challenge. Can we start to drop or question the attitudes and the views that we have about the world around us? Can we sort of take off the glasses a bit, or change the glasses? Can we sort of look around them partly? So you see the difficulty with meditation. You're sort of looking to challenge these views and attitudes and sort of make our minds more beautiful, make them more friendly, more loving, more generous, more robust, more courageous. We're trying to do that with the mind that we have, with those views and attitudes, which is hard to do. But it is possible, and really what meditation is saying is that, look, what you need to do is actually stretch your mind beyond those views and attitudes. You need to kind of like spread your mind out so that it becomes bigger than those views and attitudes. And that you can actually then spot those views and attitudes in your experience. And you will have this one day. I'm sure most of you have had something like this already, where it's like, God, do I really think that about the world? You'll sort of spot an opinion, a sort of shade that you put on the world all of a sudden. You'll almost kind of spot when you put on your glasses. You put on your sort of, I don't know, jealousy glasses, or your resentful glasses, or your whatever glass it is, your competitive glasses, or whatever that you put on. You go, do I really think that about the world? You know, I remember this happening to me on retreat once, where it was like on solitary retreat, where I clocked all of a sudden that the way I engaged with the world was that life was there to be survived. That life was there to be sort of gritted through and sort of survived. And I just sort of thought, God, is that what I think? I'd never have told you that's what I thought about the world, but it was a sort of ingrained kind of attitude that I'd picked up from sort of, you know, having a reasonably difficult time in my teenage years, my early 20s. I'd sort of picked it up and never quite dropped it again, and just sort of carried it around with me for the rest of my life since. Hopefully I'm dropping it bit by bit now, but sort of carried it around and never even quite realized. So we won't ever sort of quite realize the attitudes and the views that we bring to meditation until we sort of grow beyond them, which is what the meditation is designed to do. It's designed to sort of stretch your consciousness, stretch your awareness, stretch your mind, so that those views and those attitudes become sort of visible. They become smaller than the mind that you've then sort of developed through the meditation. So what we're going to do now, I've talked enough, I think. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to meditate again. We're going to do the same practice that we did a while ago. We'll meditate for about 20 minutes or so. And I just want to look to see, what can you start to spot? What are the attitudes that we bring to meditation? And just see, can you look to drop them a bit, question them a bit? Okay. Okay, so just settling back into your physical experience, your physical awareness again. And just connecting with a sense of stability with the cushion, stability with the floor. And we're just looking to see what are the attitudes we bring to meditation. What are the assumptions, the views? And all you need to do is just recognize that and see, well, how does that affect the way that you meditate? The first stage of the mindfulness of breathing. So just putting the count at the beginning, or sorry, the end of the out breath. Just noticing if there's any story about the meditation in your mind. Just what might that be like to just drop that story? We're looking to expand consciousness, stretch our mind beyond its normal boundaries. Just noticing what attitudes, what views we have within those normal boundaries. How do we edit or colour our experience? And then moving on to the third stage of the mindfulness of breathing. Just dropping the count and just sitting with the breath. Just noticing if any stories or views of the meditation has crept in. Seeing if you can just be curious as to what your experience is. Not labeling it, just being curious. Just dropping any effort you're making in the meditation now. Just sitting with the fruits of the practice. To a close. So I probably should have mentioned, some of the more astute of you will have noticed that I'm not Maitreya Bandhu. Maitreya Bandhu was meant to be here this evening, but he's been taken on well. He has COVID, in fact, but he's generally doing well. So hopefully he'll be back next week for the start of the challenge. So do come back next week. Do take part in the challenge, and I look forward to seeing you all then. But until then, anyway, take care, and see you all next time. Right.